Well, that's all recorded now. That's all part of the live. And welcome another weekend of botching the live start to the show. Here we go. We are so awesome at this. Hello and welcome to Funny Science Fiction, the live edition. You know, I think the most appropriate introduction that we could use instead of us saying, some self-deprecating line is just the podcast that can't figure out the live show.
But we can make fire.
But we are the Funny Science Fiction podcast. This indeed is our live edition. And at one point in our career, we will become the podcast. That's the reason why aliens roll up their windows and lock their doors while going past Earth.
I think they do that already, don't they?
Oh, no, we're in that neighborhood.
We're going to get blamed for it.
Well, before we get into tonight's show, we need to say thanks to our show partners, River City Tees and Level Up Lightsabers.
First up.
With over 700 designs to choose from, River City Tees has something for everyone. Need some new nerd merch? River City Tees has you covered. Need funny or sarcastic designs? River City Tees has you covered. Are you looking for a new logo or custom design? Whether you need 1 or 100, River City Tees has you covered. With multiple colors and options for each and every design. With things to choose from like shirts, hoodies, phone cases, coffee mugs, and so much more. Be sure to follow River City Tees on Facebook and Instagram. If you do, you'll get the latest on designs and information about upcoming sales. River City Tees. Let's make a shirt together. Whoops.
I'm supposed to have lines, but apparently every time I try talking, Tim interrupts me.
Sorry. You had something to say. Please continue your thought there.
So that was River City Tees. Next up is our favorite Level Up Lightsabers.
See, I waited for you to finish that time.
I know. I was waiting for you just to interrupt me, though.
I know. All right, here's Level Up.
Links for both of those be in the comment section as always.
They're getting there.
Don't sound so excited, Kathleen.
That's actually not part of the script. I'm just now afraid to talk.
Well, I think she was waiting to see if I was going to, cut her off as I did like the last 3 times that she tried to say something.
Sorry, you got so much of me over the weekend that you're like, oh my gosh, I can make her stop talking again.
Well, tonight we welcome Ben Reilly, or as you may know him from TikTok, the Hardy Healer.
Oh, hello.
Welcome.
Hi. I'm both excited and absolutely dreading what we're talking about tonight because it's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be a train wreck, but that's just what we do.
Oh, boy.
We specialize in train wrecks.
I will make Jason a believer.
Jason
Taylor, how you doing, buddy? So what Ben is alluding to, and you may have seen it in the show notes, are for tonight's festivities, we're going to try and talk about something that sometimes ruffles a few feathers, sometimes gets people a little hot under the collar when it comes to Star Wars. And that's just generally the topic of Jar Jar Binks. But tonight we're talking about, in specifics, whether or not Darth Jar Jar is a real thing. So are you a believer? Or are you a skeptic when it comes to the possibility of Jar Jar Binks being a Sith Lord? And is there enough evidence to support it based on what we've seen in the movies and what has been said, done, post, and pre-Phantom Menace? So before that, holy cow, we made Jason. We don't even have to make it Jason a believer. We already did it. Holy cow! All right, so
we did just cover this topic at the Monroe Pop Fest on
This past Friday,
Friday. Yeah,
Friday, yeah.
It was a blur. I don't remember things.
Yeah, so this past weekend we were at the Monroe Pop Fest in Monroe, Michigan, and this was one of the tables that we table discussions that we had, and we had a really cool conversation with the Three Geeks podcast, which is where Jason Taylor is from.
And by discussion, I mean Max yelled at us.
Well, Max always yells at us, so I don't feel all that bad about Max yelling at us. So
and
I just love Ben. I just love Ben's face reading John's comment. He's like,
the worst part is reading it in the voice.
Oh yeah.
Like if it was just a random voice, it'd be one thing, but Jesus. Sorry, my dog is going full goblin mode right now. Just in the corner, just doing nothing.
Sort of
Nice.
like
she got a little wet in the rain, so she's just slamming her face into the ground to get all the water off.
Oh no! I'm not a soggy puppy.
She does that. It's funny.
All right. So if you guys are watching out there, please make sure that you guys let StreamYard have access to your information as much as you're comfortable, at least so that we can know who you are. If you have comments that you have on this topic, thoughts that you have on this topic, please put it down into the comment section. As you see, we'll get as many of those as we can up onto the screen. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Remember, we're family friendly. Please don't yell at us.
Actually, Kathleen just doesn't want to be yelled at. Nick doesn't care. So Nick's used to us.
Sensitive.
All right, so Nick, I'm going to let you lead this out because you did such a good job on it on Friday. Let's talk about Jar Jar Binks. Is he a Sith Lord?
yes.
That's where Ben shuts off.
So
That's where Ben shuts off his camera and walks off. Okay.
I will preface this. We did discover, he was made a little too silly. And I think if they had dialed back the silliness just a little bit, it would have been a little more believable. I'm still a fan of it though. And so
No, your 2-year-old's doomed.
And yeah, so
love you too,
we have
Nick.
a lot of was Mick here for the Dune Star Wars crossover? I don't think he was.
I don't think so, but if he did, I'm pretty
Mick's
sure he
here
was
a
crying.
lot.
I was crying for it. He should be crying for it.
He was in the comments for it.
So Ben, what do you think?
Where do you stand on this, Ben?
So my whole thought is there are three main schools of thought that I've seen on like Reddit and other forums and stuff. Is there's no, he's not a Sith Lord. I'm mostly leaning to because some people just are that bad, where they're just that goofy and weird and whatnot. There's the other that he is a Sith Lord. Cool. There's another one that I've seen that Jar Jar Binks is actually Darth Plagueis. And I'm just like, as bad as it sounds, I'm like, I can see why people think that. Because Plagueis was supposed to be the one to get Palpatine into the politics and get him into power. And the whole episode 2 giving him emergency powers. I'm like, yeah, that might be a thing. But at the same time, I'm like, no. He's not. I don't believe he is.
Okay. So here's a couple things I want to lay out first before we get too far into this. So we have to talk about George Lucas and his setup of Jar Jar going into this. Now, there's a couple things that George has said that make me think that there's reason to believe that this is a possibility. So the first thing is that George has gone on record to say multiple times that Jar Jar is the key to everything.
Oh God.
And so, but with that being said, it's also unclear as to what he was referring to. Was he the key to, was it his silliness that was the key? His overacting that was the key? Was it his, there's a lot of different things that Jar Jar could have been the key for when it came to episode 1 in particular. the other thing is that George has also gone on record to say that one of the main stylistic influences on Jar Jar Binks is Goofy from Disney, from Mickey Mouse. And if you watch Jar Jar at all, which I went back and did this afternoon quite extensively, unfortunately,
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities there between them. You can see, you know, in the way that they act, the way that they walk, the sloughing of the shoulders, everything. So there's a lot of similarities there. But the one thing that always kind of gets me is that there's a tweet from Ahmed Best where he refers to the fact that he appreciates that people are catching on to the storyline, even though it was something to the effect of it wasn't, openly seen or something like that years later. So even things that were in secret or in hiding, something like that years later. I don't remember the exact tweet, and I apologize. I probably should have had that readily here for me. I thought I'd remember it better. I should have known better. It's Monday night. But, so those are a couple of things that you have to pay attention to as far as I'm concerned. And then you can start getting into the things on screen, the things that you see, how it's set up, how it works, and actually how the character is portrayed from that point forward.
Speaking of things on screen, I present to you, I don't know, what is this? Like, number one, the first factoid.
We don't know if you aren't telling us. Exhibit A?
That's what it is. Exhibit A.
Oh gosh, I'm the brains here.
So
tonight,
we actually see Jar Jar using a force jump, in which, if all Gungans were able to do this, why didn't they do this in that final battle? Kind of thing.
Yep. Okay.
So he literally
love the muting for the DMCA purposes.
I mean, look how high that jump was. It was ridiculously high. Oh. Like he gets ready to jump and then that's as tall as a tree right there.
because I mean, if you think Qui-Gon's 6 foot, so yeah.
With some
I'm also going to destroy my own argument here, saying that it looks a lot like an Ataru form. I can't remember the particular attack. It's when you jump over, do a spin, and then slash essentially at their back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ruin my own argument by saying that, but at the same time, I'm going to say during the Clone Wars cartoon, we do see Gungans jumping like that.
Really?
I believe so, unless I'm just completely imagining it, in which case, whoops.
Which, do you happen to remember which episode?
God, no. I did not care too much for the Gungan episodes. I'm sorry. They were a bit painful? No, that's too harsh of a word. There were a lot. Lot.
The other thing to take notice of with that jump, because this is one of the points that a lot of people use in identifying this as possibility of the use of force powers, is that there's also, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a few minutes a little bit more, but there's also the way that he centers himself as he prepares for the jump with the two arms straight out forward. That's also part of the way that those who practice the drunken fist wushu style of fighting would center themselves as they begin to get ready. The Gungan episodes were terrible, and I like the Christmas special. Or all that beautiful Gungan footage.
So there is a Reddit thread from 6 years ago talking about force jump versus Gungan agility. So if Jar Jar's somersault jump early in Phantom Menace was merely a feat of Gungan agility, you'd assume every Gungan has mastered this. Jar Jar being the klutz that he is, he couldn't have mastered a unique skill like that. So...
well, then it comes back down to, is he a buffoon or is he a Sith Lord?
Right.
So,
And like it was pointed out, at the battle for Naboo, all of the Gungans would have been jumping like that.
Right.
But they weren't.
Well, my thought with it is he is a buffoon, so that's probably not the type of jump other Gungans would do. It's also there were two well-established Jedi right next to him. If it was a Force ability, they probably would have known.
Right.
Also,
That's where
here,
I agree with you on that one, Ben. I've always thought that was in this argument for the possibility of Force power use and the Force jump. You know, would not have Qui-Gon and his holy crap, my
apprentice Padawan.
Padawan. Thank you. Holy crap, my mind went blank. But yeah, so would not a Jedi Master and his Padawan right there notice the use of a Force ability and made comment of it after he was already in the water?
Right.
Also, I have the Jedi Path here, and I went to the page with the ability that I was referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That type of jump. Very similar. As you see Yoda, Obi-Wan, pretty much all of the Jedi do a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now the question comes down to, is that a particular move, or is that just saving money with CGI and just throwing a new skin on it when they do the jump?
Unless, as is also pointed out in this Reddit thread, was he Force concealing his Force abilities?
But he wouldn't have been able to with that jump, though.
Yeah, if we're going by Legends lore, when Luke shrunk his presence in the Force, he couldn't use most of his Force abilities. He could do his empathic sense, things like that. But if he used any kind of telekinesis or enhancement, he wouldn't be able to maintain the concealment. So unless he's a really powerful Force user, probably not. But we don't know.
Right, because it depends on which end of the spectrum. If you are a Jar Jar Sith believer, it depends on which end of the spectrum you're on. If you think that he was just there as the Sith to try and get him in the Sith into the story, or if you believe he was Darth Plagueis, it depends on which end you're on, because that would affect how much of the Force he was using and the extent to which he was able to control it. So,
or another thought, he was Force concealing, but that's also just a Gungan jump.
Absolutely. It could be both. I agree. All right. Nick, what's Exhibit B?
We also have the whole they modeled his style after the Drunken Fist style of fighting.
Correct.
And so various things of where he jumps or how he fights in a way is very Drunken Fist style, and they actually put kind of go back and forth between a couple of the things here. So first, he's on his back just after the tank went through, and how he's lifting himself up there is also the same as that kick up there. And so now during the battle, he's literally looking around, but he's also kind of bouncing side to side. And we saw a leg sweep thing there, and he does a leg sweep thing here too.
I don't know if I'd call that a leg sweep as much as it is just stepping with long legs.
Right, but he stepped with purpose so that he would be able to shoot. And
right.
He was also aware of that droideka behind him.
Yeah. So what it comes down to is, was he obscenely lucky, or was he using the Force to control what he was doing with, again, the Drunken Fist style of fighting? So when he's stomping his foot with the robots or the droids, wires wrapped around his foot, to shoot the other oncoming droids, diving to shoot the droideka that was coming up behind him, that he would have, if he was not a Force user, would have been completely oblivious to him, more than likely not being able to hear him because of the battle that's going on around him. But did he sense that droid coming up and then turn and jump? You know, it's a question.
Then again, they have eyes up on on stocks, right? So they could have like,
yeah,
you know,
give it the flip around. Yeah, absolutely, it's a possibility.
It also brings up the question of why did that droideka not have their shield up?
Right. Yeah, yeah, I'm not concerned about that, but quizzical.
If Jar Jar is a Sith Lord, maybe it went, oh, this is friendly, I gotta play along. And then that's how, I like poking holes in my own argument. It's so much fun. I'm just like, I don't believe it, but here's all the reasons why it could be true.
Right.
No, I love that though. But so one of the things too, I want to go back to real quick. The other thing that I've always kind of wondered, and this is something I came across today, and I forgot to mention it while we were talking about the other bit right before the jump, and right before Jar Jar meets up with Qui-Gon, is now that Trade Federation ship landed on the opposite side of the planet of Naboo, and dropped, and Jar Jar just happened to be there. Is he is he that lucky where he just happened to be there, or unlucky depending on how you're viewing it, because the capital city was on the other side of the planet. Why was the Trade Federation ship going there, landing there? Was it to meet Jar Jar and have Jar Jar take over from there and get things set up, or was it just a happy story coincidence?
As someone with military experience and knowledge, I could say it's because more than likely Theed had aerial defenses, so if they tried to land closer, they would have been shot down, or at least had some kind of defense. Like, Naboo is peaceful, but not unarmed. So
true. Okay, I'll go with that.
From a slightly more, I know throwing realism in a fantasy world is a bit difficult.
How dare you?
But yeah, that's just my thing on it. As for why Jar Jar was there, just horrible luck.
Horrible
Either
luck.
that, or as Lucas says, Jar Jar is the key, essentially.
Yeah, the hinge pin, the key to everything.
The Force dictates all of it. The Force wants the inevitable outcome of Palpatine is killed, all this other stuff. Everything goes as the Force plans.
Correct.
No one else knows what the plan is, though. So, more than likely, the Force had to try and shoehorn something in to ensure the death of Qui-Gon, that being Jar Jar, to get... Actually, yeah, it makes a lot more sense to think of Jar Jar as like the Force really focusing on killing Qui-Gon than as a Sith Lord.
Yeah, because the Force is going to find balance one way or another, and it's going to level things out. Even if it, like you said, has to shoehorn something in to make it work, there's going to be, opportunity for it to build itself. Justin K says, imagine had they landed just 100 miles from that exact spot. It's a totally unlikely coincidence. It's possible. Yeah. That's kind of the thing about it is, you also have to go back to what Obi-Wan Kenobi said when he was talking with Han Solo. In his experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Yeah.
So whether it's good luck or bad luck, Obi clearly didn't believe in that. So, but, we're talking about an experienced Force user, an experienced Jedi Master. But that could have been just his personal opinion. Just because he was a Jedi Master doesn't mean he was right about everything.
Right.
I mean, we find out pretty emphatically that most of the Jedi's beliefs were probably wrong.
A good portion of them, yes.
Yeah, there was a big chunk of no that ended up getting washed away.
That's why Ahsoka ended up leaving the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Because she was like, no, I don't agree with this. So, see ya.
And so he's saying, following up to his statement, perhaps it was the Force willing it to be there, the ship to be there, for Jar Jar to be there, whether it was to make sure that Qui-Gon died so that Anakin could rise, or whatever it was.
So even if it was just like a Gungan jump per se, or he was just lucky in the battle, there is another scene that totally is definitely some sort of Force usage. Okay. And it's the scene where they're sneaking into Naboo to save the queen, I think. And it's when they drop down from the bridge. So there's a scene here.
Is this when he gets his foot caught, or
No, this is jumping off the bridge.
Yeah, so they jumped off the bridge and he dangles right there and he catches the ledge. We also see Luke Skywalker doing this in a future film, and even Obi-Wan does it later. So
technically a past film, but
yeah, so
time is relative. It's all wibbly wobbly.
Right. So they jump down, and Jar Jar is sneaking up with them. And
I also love how Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are crouched down, and Jar Jar's just like he just bends it an inch.
Right. And so he now falls on this side of Obi-Wan. Because Qui-Gon was in the middle, Obi was on the far right, and Jar Jar was on the far left. But if you also watch the droids in the background, so it wasn't an animation error. Okay, where do we... Okay, so over here, if you watch these droids, this droid right here is going to look up at Jar Jar. This droid here is actually going to shoot at Jar Jar.
Well, they first shoot at the original position, then they look towards the new position where he actually landed.
Right. So...
Anyone else have thoughts? Because I have many.
Go for it, Ben.
Continue.
Fire away.
I have nothing but respect for George Lucas. The Star Wars is an absolute masterpiece, but talking specifically about A Phantom Menace, that was a cinematic nightmare. Obi-Wan's braid changes 5 times throughout the film. Saying something like that is not a CGI glitch, I'm pretty sure it is, because they also filmed, refilmed, did reshoots after that, edited, chopped, threw things in different places. There's huge swaths of that movie that were done completely out of order just on blue screen. So
I'll give you that.
If it was something else, I would have been like, oh, maybe no. That I'm just that's just bad editing, honestly. For me, at least.
Okay. I can give you that one pretty easily. I understand the reasons for that argument, but I have a harder time biting into that one for the same reasons you just gave. But I know we have some future material for argument's sake that I agree a little closer with.
What's next, Nick?
Is this exhibit C or D?
I think we're
it's
at
D.
D.
Let's go with D. Please present exhibit D.
So the other one is that he was using a force persuasion, because he rarely uses his hands when he's talking in general. But then when you look at him in other scenes and he's trying to do things in favor of for himself or to move a plot along, you see him doing some sort of a hand gesture to add to that ability. Like him getting that promotion, he's like, oh no, you don't have to do that. Or him persuading Amidala there, or him persuading the entire council.
So for the most part, I agree with this portion of the argument. I have a hard time with the fact that he convinced the entire Galactic Senate all at once with just, because he would have to be an immensely powerful force being to control the entire galactic Senate in order to turn everything over to, at that point, the way that they did. But there are a couple points where I do believe that there's a possibility of him using this. For instance, I don't think it was shown there, but there's when he takes the looks like a frog thing hanging in the market, and it smacks Sebulba, and Sebulba comes over and kind of pseudo attacks him.
He does the hand thing.
He does do a hand wave, and Sebulba immediately lets go. Again, is that an editing issue? You can go, yeah, but then again, it's a CGI, it's completely animated, so they're putting that in on purpose, the hand wave, and then you can watch Sebulba let go and move back. And then there's other times when he's talking with Padme about becoming a senator and doing all these things as a representative of Naboo. You can see him do the hand wave, and there's all these different things, and there's times as well where Qui-Gon is talking with Padme, and as the other person's talking, Jar Jar's mouth is moving in the background, lip syncing the exact same thing they're saying. And so it's kind of an interesting point. When they wanted to go into the city, and Qui-Gon was like, no more directions from Her Highness today. There's that one, and then there's the other one where they're actually, I think they're in the city getting ready to go into the Toydarians' shop, and they're standing outside, and Padme and Qui-Gon get into it a little bit. Jar Jar is just around the corner from them. She says something, but Jar Jar is mouthing it in the background as well.
That I would like to see, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have any footage of that one, but
Yeah.
Way to go, Nick. Way to go. We entrusted you with the. No, I'm just fine.
Yeah. As for the like hand gestures and stuff, the only one that I could say maybe is with Sebulba, because I remember that where he's just like no, but at the same time you could say no, he just doesn't want Sebulba to beat him up.
Right.
As for the ones like where he's talking to Padme before she leaves, or talking to the Senate as the representative of Naboo to give Palpatine more power, those hand gestures are just emphasis on what he's talking about. Like he's sitting there addressing all the people and then says powers to Chancellor Palpatine, points directly to him,
Right.
as just emphasis on the point. But speaking specifically on that is also the argument people use to point in favor of Darth Jar Jar. He gave Palpatine all the power right there.
Right.
right.
It's a double-edged sword in that argument, because I can see why it could be used, but I also have a hard time believing that Jar Jar was able to control the entirety of the Senate. Like I said, I personally believe that he was supposed to be a Sith along some at some point of this journey. I think George just realized that he screwed the pooch along the way, made Jar Jar too much like Goofy, made him too silly, made him too much of the buffoon, and when the backlash came, he wasn't able to, or didn't feel like he was able to follow through with it, which what we talked about Friday night, which is why we get Count Dooku with a very flat storyline. He was inserted, thrown into it, because they had to have somebody pick up the mantle and carry it.
Honestly, I would have preferred if if that was the plan, I would have preferred that, because having this goofy, ridiculous character all along, and then suddenly just the sudden tonal shift, or even worse, no shift at all, and he's just doors open in Theed, Darth Maul's not there, from behind Jar Jar's just sorry, and just cuts people there. I'd be like, ooh. That would have been way more of a shock than a double-bladed lightsaber, but that was still pretty cool.
It was, yes.
John, we're going to stop putting your stuff on screen. I think John Wass says, I think episode 9 would have been better if they had brought into the theory and used Darth Jar Jar instead of zombie Palpatine. You have been forgetting about me, eh, boyo?
That would have been. Honestly, I might have liked Rise of Skywalker more.
Yep.
Just for the fan service of like, wait a minute, like using the whole like somehow Palpatine came back thing, but then they get to Exegol and it's like, that's a Gungan. That's not a. What's happening?
Yeah. Well, this is from the same planet, Naboo, so it kind of fits in. Drayton Allen, our Facebook page founder, says last week's tie-in. Yeah, thanks for that again, Nick. Jar Jar was actually a Ben Gesserit who was manipulating events to further their own agenda in the advent of their chosen one, the Kwisatz Haderach. I think I said that right. I'm not sure.
Something like that.
Something like that.
It's a Dune reference.
Okay, I'm like, wait, like, is there an entire extent of Star Wars lore that I don't know any of those references?
Well, I could see the steam starting to come out of your ears, like, oh, dang it, I need to study that.
I'm like mentally flipping through the Jedi path, like, wait a minute, there's got to be something.
So last week we did a what two sci-fi universes can you combine? Like, could be in the same universe. And I went with Dune is ancient history Tatooine.
Because he hates everybody. Well, Drayton, your wish was had. You wanted me to say that word again. Kwisatz Haderach. I know it's Hebrew for something. I just can't remember what it means. And I just
think
know
it
that
means
it's hard
chosen
to pronounce.
one or something like that. But
it could. That's a possibility. We'll go with that.
The other thing too is the main series in Star Wars. What they did is they wanted some sort of a creature of sorts to be a little silly and then have a big reveal. And I know that they were trying to do that too in the first one, having some roadside creature meet up with them and then have a big reveal later. So like Yoda, we first meet him, we don't realize he's a Jedi Master, but then later we're like, oh, that was cool.
So here's a couple things before we've only got about 20 minutes left here tonight, but a couple things. I want to go back to some things about Ahmed Best. So Ahmed Best was the actor, of course, who played Jar Jar, and unfortunately got a lot of backlash for, well, just performing and doing the job he was hired to do, which sucks. Not Jar Jar sucks, but it sucks that people treated him that way. Here's the interesting thing. Ahmed Best doesn't really dismiss a lot of these theories. He thinks that there's a lot of truth to these theories. Now, we're not saying that he's a Jar Jar truther or anything along those lines, but a Jar Jar truther. That's right. That's gotta be a thing. That's gotta be a thing. We gotta. But what he does say is that there's some credibility to it, and that there's in an article on Gizmodo from 2016, when he was addressed about the Darth Jar Jar theory and that Jar Jar was in fact a Sith Lord working with Palpatine in the prequels, Best's response was, "There's a lot about it that's true." So he never went into great detail saying what parts of it were true, what parts of it weren't. There was that, and then there was that other cryptic Twitter post.
It feels really good when the hidden meaning behind the work is seen, no matter how long it takes.
That's the one. Thank you.
I found it.
That's why we keep Kathleen around. She picks up.
I don't put a lot into conversations, but I research while you guys are rambling.
So she keeps us on our toes. So there's a couple things here. So we have to look at those. There's a couple other things I want to point out about George Lucas and the way that he has formulated his stories. There's a lot of things where there's symbolism and repeats in how he does the stories and how they're set up. So if you remember in the original trilogy, in the OG OT, that there is a bumbling, fumbling idiot who all of a sudden is revealed to be something bigger, greater, grander, a Force user. That, of course, is Yoda. So the premise is that this was supposed to be the same thing, but Yoda's Force opposite was Jar Jar Binks. That, again, is part of the theory and part of the thought process as to, how this all kind of came along. I don't think that, a lot of people either say that he was Darth Plagueis, and there was even some people for a while who said that he was Snoke. And I'm like, no, he's not Snoke. He's not Snoke. That's not even a possibility.
I saw Snoke, Riven, Bane. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I would prefer if it is true, it's just Darth Jar Jar, as opposed to he's actually all of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, Jason, I agree. I wish we could get Ahmed Best on the show to talk to us about other things. I would actually just love to thank him for his work in Star Wars, for what he's done, the abuse he took.
He's such an amazing person, and
yeah,
it boggles my mind when people go after an actor or actress for the character they play.
Right.
It just, I don't get it.
And it is mind-boggling when people can't pull character from actor and realize that
right
this does not exist. This is a fictional character.
Yeah,
science fiction at that. So you have to take much of it with a grain of salt.
So the only thing I have to throw into this is a Screen Rant article with the top 10 reasons that Jar Jar Binks is actually a Darth Jar Jar. Number 1 is that
Ben's like, oh god,
I've read that article,
and George Lucas have all but confirmed it. George Lucas has claimed that Jar Jar is his favorite Star Wars character.
He has said that a bunch of times. I don't know if that is him just messing around and just wants to play off everyone's hate.
Oh, probably.
In which case, George Lucas is really the Sith Lord. But
that actually makes a lot of sense.
But at the same time, it's just is it what he had planned for Jar Jar that makes him his favorite, or is it what he did with Jar Jar? Because we all know that literally any form of media that you do, whatever you have planned and whatever happens are totally different things. I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm a dungeon master, and everything I have planned never happens.
Well,
all the time.
You have a group of murder hobos.
I planned this whole festival and carnival and everything, and they went, "That's cool. We're gonna leave town." I'm just like, okay, but I mean, think about it. Luke was supposed to be Star Killer. I don't even think Vader was actually supposed to be Luke's dad. I don't remember if I'm getting that right. But there's
I
think
you're right. I think that was changed.
Ways.
Yeah, I think that was changed. One more thing before we go on with the rest of Kathleen's list. One of the other things that Ahmed had said, of course, and when he said in that quote, he said, "What I can say about it is this," and I kind of said this on Twitter. There's a lot about that's true.
Thank you, John. I feel that. Thank you.
He is also the DM for our group, and it never goes well.
Yep.
He also goes on to say, Ahmed Best went on to say, there are some things that are not true. Could have Jar Jar have evolved into that? I think the answer is yes. Because of the backlash, and rightly so, Lucasfilm backed off from Jar Jar a lot. But a lot of the influence I put into Jar Jar mirrored a lot of what was already in the Star Wars universe. Was there an official Darth Jar Jar in the works? That's really a George Lucas question. I cannot answer that. So,
yeah.
And then that's when he went on to continue to say, I will say this, it feels really good when the hidden meaning behind the work is seen, no matter how long it takes.
That does make a lot of sense, because Jar Jar was super influential in episode 1, kind of there for episode 2, and episode 3, I don't even think you see him until Padme's funeral.
Right.
Yeah, just
there might have been him in the corner once or twice, but after he was in Palpatine's chamber for 5 minutes, and then the next time you see him, Padme's dead. So Correct. It's wow. They did him dirty on episode 3.
Yeah, they did. Just in case says, if you know how many people were sacked by Disney for even saying a little bit about a Disney character, perhaps Lucas was flirting for Disney. Possible. All right, what else was your did your
also
article
in
say
this
there?
list is that his clumsiness might be an act, which we kind of touched on.
Right, we talked about that a little bit.
Palpatine carefully orchestrated everything, which makes sense.
And to be fair, Palpatine and Jar Jar are both from Naboo, so it's basically.
Well, so is Palpatine and Padme. So.
Right, but Padme was more in the palace. I don't think Palpatine was.
If we're going by the I mean, it's not canon now, but if we're going by the Darth Plagueis book, he was a noble.
Okay.
Like Palpatine's dad worked for the palace. I don't remember if he was a representative to the Galactic Senate or not, but I know he was like of nobility. He had money.
See, this is why we have you here, Ben, because we don't.
This is the reason why I don't remember people's names. I will meet someone 1,000 times. If you didn't have names under your pictures, I'd be like, Tom.
The girl, the mustache man.
You person with Jar Jar behind you. You in the gray background. No, but it's just an encyclopedia of Star Wars and video games, and no room for anything else other than Bowling for Soup from like the early 2000s. That's all the music that plays in my head. It's so bad.
Great burrito extortion case over and over.
High School Never Ends, 1985. That just constantly on loop. It's so bad.
You said Bowling for Soup, and I'm like, yay.
Yes, that and a lot of the Phineas and Ferb soundtrack. But anyway,
there's a reason for that, though. You know, so
connects.
It connects. Bowling for Soup is awesome.
Honestly, it's.
Sorry.
I don't think they've done anything in like 20 years or something, but they're still my favorite band. Like, it's so good.
They've got stuff brewing.
So happy.
So we talked about him dodging death with uncanny precision. His infiltration of the Senate. Giving absolute power to Chancellor Palpatine.
That's honestly everyone's biggest argument for it. It's just, but he did this.
Yeah. The hand gestures we talked about. His mirroring, being a mirror of Yoda. In
yay.
ways.
I mean, he's tall. I don't know if orange is the opposite of green, but I'll let that one slide.
You know
I think
how
they need force mirror.
You know how they do like those animated fights like Darth Vader versus Superman or whatever. They need to do one with Darth Jar Jar versus Yoda.
Yeah. There's the whole Darth Vader.
I would absolutely watch it. I would watch it with utter disgust but fascination. Be like, I hate every second of it, but I need to finish this.
I love hearing Ben's deep sighs every time that something like that gets brought up.
It's just
it's the soul-sucking defeat that knowing that he would sit there and watch it and hate himself for doing it.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Padme was manipulating Anakin under Palpatine's direction to breed a replacement for an eventual Vader, but he had Jar Jar murder her after she gave birth.
What?
I am lost.
I think he's just making it up. But
Nick, that's your dad. Interpret,
that's
please.
Your problem.
So I believe
that's your gene pool, sir.
Go check to make sure he's not having a stroke.
I'm really hoping he's just.
Yeah, he's just making it up, throwing out a different theory or story just to have fun.
Okay.
Like,
good,
I kind of like the idea of that happening.
I mean, I've seen the theory of Palpatine actually like killing Padme with the Force. Like, I've seen that theory because the Doctor's like, we don't know why, she's just dying. Where it's like Palpatine is like sucking the life force out of her and putting it into Anakin. I've seen that.
Yeah, there's no clear reason as to why she died, but yeah, I've heard that too.
That is a thing that happens, but it has a physical manifestation. It will like rip holes in your heart. So the fact that this super advanced technological literally robot doctors. Like, we don't know why she's dying.
Not to mention back to tanks.
Yeah, like throw her in a fucking. Oops, sorry. Throw her in a pool of water. That was my fault. I'm sorry.
Woo!
We heard nothing. You heard nothing. We move along.
Speaking of ears, Jar Jar's ears are the original force dyad in the second.
Oh, jeez, John. All right. So what it comes down to is, do we have any answers? No. What we have is a lot of theories and a lot of probabilities and a lot of maybes and you know, even with the people who originally portrayed Jar Jar, the person who originally portrayed Jar Jar can't say for certain whether or not this is a possibility. He thinks there's a lot of truth to it, but it's ultimately a George Lucas question, and I think this is something that George Lucas will ultimately take to his grave. I don't think he'll ever come out and say whether or not that was the actual thing or not. So
he will just Yoda, and somebody will ask him if it's true, and he'll just stop talking and die.
Only Colto can do that. All right, Ben, we're running out of time here, but we want to make sure that people know a little bit about you, and we are so thankful to have you on here with us. So tell people where they can find out more about you and where they can go follow you at.
You can follow me on TikTok at Hardy_healer. I do Star Wars content. I've been making a lot of tea on TikTok recently. I actually have my tea set right there. Yeah, I do a bunch of random things on TikTok. So if you want to follow me, that's where you can find me.
All right.
All right. Excellent. I just put that into the chat so that people can find you. Please go check out Ben's stuff. I subscribe to him and follow him on TikTok. Ben's a really cool dude. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last little bit, and a lot of fun. Big Star Wars fan. That's why he's here.
Yeah.
And he knows more about Star Wars than I will have, or forgotten more about Star Wars than I will ever learn.
It is a blessing and a curse when people ask me things, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's just this, and it's like, oh, how do you do basic math? I'm like,
let me
hang
take
on
off
a minute.
my
I
shoes.
spent
Hold
12
on.
years doing this.
I can still do this. I can make it happen.
So
I
before
had
we
to
get
do this-
into
oh,
the next
sorry.
part of the script, I do have a thing I need to tell Tim that I want
Oh,
to tell
geez.
Tim
I
on
forgot all
live
about this.
internet to watch the reaction. So you bought 20 Funko Pops this weekend?
Approximately, give or take.
So at the one booth where I bought my 5,
Mm-hmm.
he gave me a discount because I got you to buy so many of them.
The betrayal.
So anyway, it was nice to have Kathleen on the show with us tonight.
Didn't want to
No,
deal
that
with the
totally
repercussions.
makes sense.
It
That
was
totally
so
makes
funny. So like you walked away with your bag of Funkos, and he's like, "And I'm gonna give you a discount because he just bought a lot."
I did.
I
That
mean,
guy.
that's a bonus for you.
I just, it's not my fault when somebody puts a clearance table in my way. Okay.
I know.
And
As
So
soon as
bad.
he said $5 clearance table, and you're like, "Oh yay!" and away you skipped.
my head shot up like a deer hearing a twig snap when he said $5 clearance table. And there was a whole bunch of Funkos on there that I've been looking for and trying to find, and by golly, I found most of them. So
Skip.
They always get you with that. That, especially at conventions where they're just like, but look at this, and you know what? I'll cut the price. You're just like,
okay.
Here's
Also,
my firstborn.
no joke. I bought a plushie Bulbasaur solely for the fact that its face was squished up against the glass case it was in, and I wanted to protect it. Like, it was just pressed against the thing, and I was like, no, I need to make it safe. Gimme.
Okay.
And then
so
they jammed another one, and I'm like, I just bought one. I can't buy another.
So
Really
out of all
bad.
the Funkos that I found this weekend, this is the one that is kind of I am like giddy that I found, okay? Because he's been awfully hard for me to find, or at least at a halfway decent price. And it's Captain Rex from Star Wars Rebels, Old Man Rex.
Nice.
God, I love Rex so much.
I found that and I went it was a an audible squeak, and I think the guy knew right then he had me, and it didn't matter what he was going to charge me. Although I talked him down, I was pretty proud of that. Yep, pretty proud of that.
All right. So, as a reminder, last Friday was our 50th episode.
50th.
Woo! With a very special Star Wars guest.
Do I have to read it again?
No,
we're
we
just
have
gonna
audio.
play.
Well, it'll be on the screens. People can read themselves.
Oh.
Play the video!
Hi, this is Daniel Jose Older. Welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
All right. So, yes, Daniel Jose Older, the lead story architect for the new High Republic series in Star Wars, creating worlds, characters, monsters, and more. So, there was that interview.
And you can still find that episode of Funny Science Fiction on your YouTube channel and your favorite audio podcast providers. And remember, your subscription to our YouTube channel is a major help. So please don't forget to click. So please don't forget to click, like, and subscribe as you watch those videos.
You know what I'm most happy about right now?
Nailing it.
You know
Nailing
what I'm
it.
most happy about right here, right now? Normally, I'm the one who boots that line, and Nick leaves it in when I screw it up, and he doesn't have a choice because this is live. So everybody got to hear that. But yeah, please don't forget to click like and subscribe, as Nick was trying to tell you. Now, this upcoming Friday, of course, we continue on. We have our 51st episode, and we release an episode with a very awesome voice actor by the name of Paul Eiding.
Hello, it's Colonel Roy Campbell here, Metal Gear Solid, also known as Paul Eiding. Welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
So that is Paul Eiding. As we mentioned, he's a voiceover actor. He's brought to life characters such as Perceptor from Transformers, Colonel Campbell from Metal Gear Solid. He is Grandpa Max Tennyson on Ben 10. And so many other shows. If you look down his resume, it's kind of like a who's who of what he's performed on and where he's been. He's an absolute great guy with a ton of cool, super cool stories. So tune in this Friday on our YouTube channel, Funny Science Fiction Podcast, or listen to it on your favorite audio podcast destination. Either way, don't forget to click like and subscribe as you're doing it. It's a really cool interview, and you guys are going to love it.
All right, guys, that's our show.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And if you stuck through the entire show, you should probably find a therapist.
Boy, if you think our beginnings of this show are rough and self-deprecating, all right.
Love the show. Got those landings though. It's a little bumpy taking off. You're getting there. You're good throughout the whole time, and then
We're working on it. We're just
It's
gonna
good.
crash back into
it's
it.
wonderful. It's the reason why I watch.
All right, guys. Thank you
He
so
just
much
wants
for
to watch
being
the
here,
train
Ben.
wreck.
Well, it's half the fun. That's why people watch, Tiger King. So
I might have to release a blooper reel of sorts.
Oh, we
on
should.
that note, we gotta go. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.